All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ezibota Roundtable discussion for July. Roundtable discussions provide an opportunity to expand conversations on topics relevant to Ezibota as a community. And today we are going to discuss about passport privilege and heritage identity. So in essence, what it means to be African while holding a Western passport. My name is Benjamina. I'm one of the nine Ezibota's contributors, and today I'm going to be your moderator. Um, right now I'm talking to you from London, and my Twitter handle is Italian underscore is African, sorry, underscore Italian, in case you want to get in touch. And the official hashtag is EasyChat. Okay. Now I'm going to give a chance to our panel to introduce themselves and then get the conversation started. So let's start with Kalkidan.
Hi, I'm Kalkadan and I live in Wisconsin. I am a student. I am studying international relations at the moment. Yeah, and I'm Ethiopian.
Thank you, Kalkidan. So we're going to go ahead with Pavlos.
Yeah, hello. My name is Paulos. I'm from Helsinki, around Helsinki right now. My heritage is Kenyan Congolese, and as I said, I live in Finland and I have a degree in environmental engineering. And I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to see you guys.
Thank you. Now let's go ahead with Beulah.
Hello, my name is Beulah Osweke. I am Nigerian. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas. I currently reside in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the United States of America. I studied clinical psychology in school. Oh, I guess I was too loud. Sorry. I studied clinical psychology in school.
Okay. Thank you, Beulah. So now, before we start, just to give a bit of context to our discussion today. So as I said earlier, we are talking about passport privilege. Um, now, just the background story. 2 months ago, I went to my country of origin, Ghana, and as part of the documentation, I had to get a visa, and that kind of disturbed me a little bit because I was thinking I am African, I come from this country, but I have to get a visa to get there. So it really got me thinking about what it really means to be African, what it means to navigate African spaces with a Western passport, a Western identity effectively. So my question to our panel today, so whether you hold a Western or African passport, is a passport a medium or an affirmation of your identity? So just gonna start with Beulah. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So you said if we hold a passport?
So yeah, so whether it's an African passport or a Western passport, so whether European or American, is that a sort of an affirmation of your identity, or is just really a medium for you to be able to comfortably navigate spaces, whether it's African or elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, some people might disagree. That's fine, but I do think it's some indication of your identity, just because like it's so difficult to attain a passport. I'm assuming. I wouldn't really know. As I mentioned before, I'm Nigerian, and I remember the last time I was in Nigeria, I had to renew my passport. We were there all day, and I think it cost us like thousands of extra dollars because they're so corrupt and they're like asking for bribes and stuff. So, I mean, it's it's not easy to attain a passport for a reason, and so I know that it's easier for certain people like of certain levels to attain passports due to money or due to like nepotism or whatever, but it's supposed to be some kind of indication of your identity or like where you call home. Yeah.
Thank you for that point. Kakadon, do you have any points in regards? Do you have any points in regards to that?
Yeah, I guess I could kind of agree with Beulah in the sense that it would deal with your identity, but I also, knowing like I was adopted, so that once I was adopted, I had to become a citizen here. So then I no longer was a citizen of Ethiopia. So I don't have a dual citizenship. So I'm actually going through the whole process of getting a passport because I'm going back home for the first time. So it's just kind of interesting in that sense, I suppose. But yeah, I guess I'd definitely identify with my Ethiopian side more than I guess the American.
Thank you for your point. Paulus, what do you think in regards to the question, specifically relating to your identity and the passport that you hold?
Yeah, so I'm not going into details, but I read the text you gave us,
Mhm.
and it was very interesting because in this one specific article, the one called "The Right to Go Abroad," uh, to have and to hold a passport, it states very clearly that passport is a system that is really a new invention. I mean, we think it as something that has always been here and something that's like a basic part of our lives. But for example, in the text that you gave us, it's quite obvious that it was invented around the turn of the century political. It doesn't really have origins in like culture or identity. It's more like a political tool to manage who comes in and who goes out. But maybe later on it has had some more and more like national identity ties because of nationalism that was quite rampant in Europe during like the late 19th century, for example. But I don't know. What do you guys think about it? Is it like more politics or is it like part of your heritage or identity?
I would I would definitely say it's a mechanism used for control, definitely. Because I, in the articles that were shared, one of the things that was said was that the worldwide use of passports has um, an effect in making all individuals potential aliens. I don't think it's really concerned with you and your identity. It's more as how can we group people together in the way that we want. So I don't know. I don't think I don't think it's really targeted towards the identity aspect.
But don't you think, and this is obviously a question for all, don't you think the privileges that come with having a specific passport very much ties into the identity of the person? So, the fact that you enjoy a certain type of protection in a foreign land. So, I'm, for example, referring specifically to holding an American passport. Um, you are sure that you will probably find an embassy in every country in this world, rather than holding, for example, a Ghanaian passport. Don't you think there is, although historically has been very much, like Pavlos, you were saying, to control movement of people, don't you think now it's the paradigm is a little bit shifting in terms of, catering it around identity?
Who was that
Well, I
question?
can.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what Benjamin tried to say is that now it's more evolved through like usage. It has evolved into a signal of your identity because now we have like nation states that have been here for a longer time, almost as long as the passport system. And what Benjamin said that now opportunity is a symbol of your nationality. Maybe in some countries, yes. Like let's say for United States, you have a green card when from the text we got, I understood that, for example, in the United States, they already had some kind of passport system already in the 17th or was it 18th century. So it's almost as old as the United States. But for example, in Africa, not in Africa. For example, my mom's country, Kenya. There they had tribal systems long before they had any passport system. Like the passport system was like for them a European invention. So maybe in some places it's like part of your nationality, part of your identity, your passport. But in some cultures where this passport is most like imposed on us, it's more of like a systematic thing for us.
Viola, you had a
I mean
point.
that's
Viola, you had a point
mm.
to share earlier.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. I was negligent. I was asking who you were talking to because I didn't want to I don't want to leave you hanging. But I mean, I think to your point, like I have a United States passport and a Nigerian passport, and obviously, like I went to Europe 2 weeks ago, I think, and obviously, like an American passport grants me more privilege or like less suspicion than a Nigerian passport would. So I think that's what you're asking, and honestly, it's kind of like a privilege that we're aware of, but like when the time comes to use it, we use it because I was very grateful to to show the Brits I am American, I'm American. But clearly not everyone, has that liberty if they wanted to travel, vacation, all that. And like I was actually pretty surprised when I went to London. They would be like, "Why are you coming here?" I'd be like, "Vacation." "What's your job?" I would tell them. They're like, "Okay, well, enjoy your stay." But I feel like if it was, if I show my Nigerian one or any other circumstance, they would like, we would have like a 10-minute conversation. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And to build on that, there's here a quote by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie when she talked about um, her identity as a Nigerian woman. I'm just gonna read a brief point she makes here. She says, "I had many opportunities to get an American passport, but I chose not to because I felt in a slightly misguided way that I wanted to somehow be authentically Nigerian, which meant that I would travel with only a Nigerian passport, and I would therefore be forced through the various indignities that attend a Nigerian passport, such as having difficulties in getting visas to different countries and being harassed at different airports." Exactly the point that you made, Beulah. Um, and she go ahead to say, "I watch people's faces, and the minute I present my green Nigerian passport, something happens. It's a mask of distrust." So I think this is very telling of the fact that, and it ties very well with the next question that we have a little bit explored, but really, the question is passport privilege a thing? I mean, are we entitled to, navigate African spaces, um, having, an American passport, an Italian passport in my case, and, um, a Finnish passport and all that? Are we entitled to do that, or there is a need for us to kind of reclaim our identity in a way through the documentation that we use?
Well, I have a quick question, because, I mean, and I don't know if that was targeted to someone. I'm sorry if I'm hijacking your space. But, so from that quote or whatever that was that you read, she said something like being authentically Nigerian, so only having a Nigerian passport. I'm just kind of like, like really? That's just strange to me. Maybe someone reads that or like receives that in a different way, but I don't really know what that means, and like that's kind of a little silly to me. Did anyone read that differently, or maybe somebody from Twitter or on the chat can give their input? Because maybe I'm just like not receiving it, but I mean, it's like I wasn't even impressed. I did hear it, but like I was just like authentically Nigerian because you only have a Nigerian passport. That's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, so just to build on what you just said, someone from Twitter is saying, just politics. A passport alone doesn't describe in depth the complexity of one's identity. Does anyone have a comment on that?
So the person that gave that was their Twitter handle is, I'm probably saying it wrong. I'm sorry, but Von Hondas. I think it's Vivian from our Africa. Alone doesn't describe the complexity of identity, like skin color alone, anything alone. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Kakidan, do you have any comment on that?
I didn't really hear. Can you repeat what the person wrote?
Pardon? Can you repeat what you said, please?
Could you repeat what was posted on Twitter?
Oh, the
I'm
tweet.
sorry.
Yeah. So they said, just politics, so referring to passport, just politics. A passport alone doesn't describe in depth the complexity of one's identity. So, and Beulah made the case of, obviously everything alone doesn't sort of explain holistically identity. We have to explore different aspects. So I was just wondering if you had any point on that.
No, I think, yeah, I definitely concur with the person who wrote that post. Yeah, you can't just base someone's identity just solely off of the passport, because you don't know what's, I guess, behind that, whether they may have moved to a different country and now have become a citizen, so that now they hold a different passport. So,
Paulus, what do you think?
Yeah, I personally kind of agree with the commentator because a passport luckily doesn't tell your skin color, luckily doesn't define your race or religion. But for example, we have had cases like, in South Africa, where a passport did like mean that you were either black, that means African, or white, that means European. So passports has been used to like separate people through race lines or religious lines, but luckily I don't know of many places where that's still like present. I think at the basic level, passport like your privileges as a citizen of a certain country, a certain union, but it doesn't usually define what your cultural background is or um, what your worldview is. But it has been used, for example, in South Africa to separate the native people from it. So it's quite complex as a question in my mind. Mm.
Okay, thank you for that comment. We have another tweet from the African King, and they're saying just a medium, you have to separate nationality and ethnicity, um, which is something I definitely agree with. So obviously, our ethnicity, so the fact that we are Africans, is very much so our heritage effectively is very much different from our nationality, which sometimes can be very strong and actually be your identity, or or be with your identity. But sometimes it could be also just a way to navigate spaces. So, Beulah, you earlier made the point of, when you went to Europe, you used your American passport because really that means you didn't have to apply for a visa. That means you didn't have to sort of what Chimamanda was describing here, get the suspicious looks and Nigerian, what are you doing here and whatnot. So definitely that's a point that has to be taken. I just slightly wanted to go back to the question about the way, and I'm just going to use myself as an example, but I know a lot of people that sort of face this challenge. Are we entitled to feel in a specific type of way? So when I felt kind of annoyed at the fact that I had to apply for a visa, is it a sentiment that I'm entitled to feel, or it's something that it's as a sort of consequence of having to share uh, these different identities and effectively nationalities? So I'm gonna go ahead with you, Beulah, if you have any thoughts on that.
So you're saying, are we entitled to feeling annoyed that we have to go through this process? First,
Yes.
the number one thing I thought about, because I haven't traveled in a while. I actually hate traveling. It's like the biggest inconvenience. It's not the biggest inconvenience, but it's inconvenient for me. Um, and I actually realized that my passport was going to expire while I was on my trip, so I had to get an expedited passport. And I was like, it is extremely expensive to maintain a passport. Like, I had to $200 like within a day to get my passport, and I'm like, if you're poor, like if you're someone that either has a family and wants to maintain a passport for your entire family or anything, like this whole process is not for you. Um, and so I think that there's different spots along the process that we can be irritated at, but that really occurred to me because I was like, yeah, it's easier for some of us to, be able to pay these fines or be able to pay these fees or be able to maintain it or whatever else is required. But I think to a point that Paulus was making earlier, it kind of discriminates against a lot of people, but it then asks the question or forces the question like, how else would be able to have a system like this? And a lot of people even take offense to passports because they're like, how can you make me pay to travel God's earth? I didn't. I apologize. But that was just on my head.
Yeah, that's very, that's very, definitely very interesting. Kalkidon, do you have any thoughts on the question?
Yeah, I think people right have a right to feeling frustrated, definitely. I think just the whole implementation of the passport. I know, like, I don't know what the other alternative would be to a passport, but I yeah, just the fact that somebody else who is above all has all control over how it's regulated, and like we don't really have a say in how it's run. I don't know. I think within that there's some frustration maybe.
But you could also argue, I understand your point, but you could also argue that it's a choice to have a specific passport or to have a passport at all. Um, but then again, I guess the
Yeah,
choice is very much constrained because if you don't have one, you
you
can
can't travel.
effectively travel. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Paulus, do you have any comment on that?
Not really. I stay on my point. I won't switch my views, but I still think because like many people here have questions that are we suffering like symptoms of privilege? Because let's say if we have American, European, Western passport, it is a privilege, and maybe it's more like a symptom. We like get annoyed when we get the same treatment as the rest of the world. That's outside of the EU zone or outside of the North American zone. Maybe it's a symptom of privilege that we don't understand is what people go through like in their daily lives like all around the world. It's like the normal thing, and what we have is a state of like status quo. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. But okay, a passport is still a tool for some people, but I don't know if it's enough to say that I'm gonna just like drop my passport just to experience authentically what it is to be African and travel in the world where you're not seen as an equal person to, let's say, an American or a European. So I don't know really about that.
Yola, do you have anything to add?
I do. I just wanted to make sure that we engage, like, because we're on basically three different mediums right now. So I wanted to just share a comment that Olu on Twitter, the African King, Sherry said, passport is just a medium. You have to separate nationality and ethnicity. And then also give a shout out to people on the chat at ezibota.com/chat. We have Blue Comet Zola, who is studying pharmacy in Egypt. We have Alpha, who's a good time friend. We have Anine. And I just also wanted to say, because Benjamin, I think you brought up this point, or we're going to bring it up later. I'm sorry if I'm skipping ahead. I read the question, so I know the stuff.
Don't worry.
But something that is like very interesting to me in this day and age, or like a lot of people are like enlightened and woke, is that a lot of times these phrases or words that embody very heavy, very complex things kind of become simplified. So we're all like using the word privilege like very lightly, but it's very deep, right? And where we have privilege, other people are oppressed, and like other people don't even have the platform, the time to have these kind of conversations. So Benjamin, you spoke about having like an American passport or like a British passport, but still being able to navigate African spaces as an authentic African. And I really wonder like what the conversation looks like or like how people even feel. Um, and maybe that's kind of like a nod to what I was saying about Chimamanda Adichie when she was like authentically Nigerian. It's kind of like we get to be authentically African, Ghanaian, Nigerian, Ethiopian, whatever, but still navigate the world freely. Where our people on the continent, our native lands, don't have these passports. But we then get offended when we say, "How can you say we're not authentic, but we're still like playing this privilege game?" So that's just like a thought that I had just now, and I was kind of curious what y'all thought, what people on Twitter think, what people on the chat think, because I know as I won't speak for everybody, but like, as a diasporan, it's very sensitive when someone questions your authenticity. But like this is one of the things where they're like, you can just travel the world as you want to because you have this pretty blue passport or you have this one that people deem as acceptable, yet you still get to come into our spaces and occupy it as an authentic African. So I'm done rambling, and I just want to shout out again, people on Twitter, people on the chat. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for sharing that. Actually, I would invite at this point all the people that are listening to us via Twitter, via the tweets, or also on the chat, to actually go ahead and share with us when they actually notice, or if they have ever noticed the privilege in their passport, and yeah, how in terms of vice versa. Because for example, I know at university I know a lot of African students, and I have a friend who always says, I'm always like, oh, let's go here, let's go to Berlin, let's go to Paris, and she's like, sorry, it's not that easy, and she always reminds me of my privilege. So I think it's very much interesting to actually have people that have these sort of limitations to actually share their experience, because that's where we see the real thing. So go ahead, if you have any thoughts, please go ahead and share with us. Our handle is Ezibota, and yeah, EasyChat is the official hashtag. Now, more broadly, I just wanted to go to a question about returning home and going back to our respective countries of origin. And I just wanted to ask you guys, have you ever been home to your African country, and if you haven't gone home, why is that, and why would you want to go if you want to go, just to have to see if this is connected to passport issue, documentation.
Well, I'm going back home this fall, and I'm planning my trip right now. The reason it's taken me this long is to go back home is one, just because I was young and I couldn't just travel alone. But and yeah, the reason I'm going home is to see my family. I haven't seen them in about 14 years, so it's time to go back home. But it should be interesting.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think you
Yeah.
froze, but Calcadam was answering your question.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear the question?
Yeah, she was answering it. She just
Oh,
speaking softly.
okay. Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
What I was just saying is that I'm going home this fall just for 3 months, um, just because I haven't seen my family in a while. Um, and yeah, even just to see if there's a potential to live there in the future as well, like what opportunities have opened up. Just because it's changed, I haven't been back in 14 years, so that should be interesting.
Viola, do you have anything to say?
About traveling home.
Yeah, going back to so in your case, Nigeria. If you have ever been as an adult, and if you haven't, would you like to? And if you wouldn't like to, why is that?
I don't know if you froze. Okay, so I have been back as an adult. Yeah, I have, and I was actually thinking about this because I was like, I need to renew my Nigerian passport, but I haven't been. I've always been back like on family trips. I've never been back like either by myself or like with just one of my siblings or a few of them. So I'm very curious as to what that experience is going to be like now, knowing all that I know. Hopefully, I know more than I knew when I was like a child. So yeah, that's going to be very interesting, and I cannot wait to share the experience with you all. But I have been back several times.
Paulus?
Yeah, I would like to ask the question from you, Benzamina. Have you been back to your
To
country of
Ghana?
origin, or how has it been?
Yeah, I actually went to Ghana in March, 2 weeks. Mid-March to end of March, and it was very interesting. And I actually wrote a blog post about it on my website, and if you guys are interested, I'll definitely share it with you. Um, for me, so it was very interesting. So I left Ghana when I was 8 years old, and obviously I was definitely conscious of my being, but I wasn't very much conscious about the people around me and the system around me and the society around me. Um, so, when I went back, I actually didn't know, I would say I didn't know anyone because I guess I didn't remember anyone. So that was, I left Ghana in 2002. So that's like 14 years ago. And I would be walking down the street and people would be calling my name and they'll be saying, "Oh, is that you?" and all that stuff. And I would just be like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And very difficult because I felt alienated. I felt alienated from my own country and my own ancestral hometown. But at the same time, um, on the flip side, I felt very grateful because I felt like I was being accepted anyway. I was feeling alienated because I didn't know anyone and I couldn't recall the memories that they were trying to share with me. But at the same time, I felt grateful because I was like, no matter how long I could be gone for, these people will always remember me and I will always be present and part of the community. So that was very much that made my sense of identity very 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 strong, and I just felt grateful, but I don't feel like I'm entirely over it because again it's very much the dichotomy of being feeling too Italian for my Ghanaian home and feeling too Ghanaian for my Italian home effectively. Because even the way I would do things, people would comment on it and very much recall, oh, she's Obroni, so Obroni means white and effectively means sort of foreigner. So people will always, remind me of my foreignness and how I do not authentically belong here. So that is regardless of your passport. Uh, you know, in the real world, when people are approaching you, they don't care. You can hold a Ghanaian passport and no one cares. It's your manners is what you do, um, that sort of projects you within a specific culture or identity effectively. Anything to share on that for anyone else?
Well, I mean, I had a few things to share from Twitter and the chat. Um, just want to share some thoughts from Reddit. She's actually a new Ezibota contributor, very exciting. Benjamin is comrade and teammate. She said the passport is definitely privileged, but the challenge is also about bridging the gap between those who have and have not. And then we asked a question about visiting back home, and Olu, the African King on Twitter, said going home is an amazing experience, learned a lot, and really affirmed my identity. Olu, if you could speak more about that, it'd be interesting to hear. And then Reddit said it'd be interesting to hear their opinion about what the roles of youth could be in the new travel arrangement proposed by AU. Hashtag EziChat. And then just real quick, on ezibota.com/chat, Alpha shared a really good point. And Alpha is Sierra Leone, I believe. He lives in England, I think. Alpha, right. But I'm just going to read this little paragraph he shared. He said, those of us with Western passports, as well as African passports, are incredibly privileged, being able to travel in and out of our respective countries with no wahala. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. It's a privilege. While to be Brit and not African, because of my passport privilege and my accent. That annoyed the hell out of me. Having two passports doesn't make me any less of an African. And I told them great point. Dina told them great point. Some people told them great point. But I was just, I said I understand where the annoyance comes from, but I was asking if he understood why people like would then take shots at his identity. I don't know if he's responded. But I just wanted to share those thoughts and encourage.
Beulah, can you repeat the last point? You froze a little, so I'm not sure if anyone,
Did
if
I?
everyone heard
What,
you.
what was the last thing I said?
So you would really, you froze that you would really. I think
Oh,
you were
okay.
about to say you would really
I was
encourage.
just saying. I was just saying. I would really encourage engage because like we're the live video portion, but people are just making really great points on Twitter and the chat. And so, like Benjamin said, our our Twitter handle is Ezibota, Ezibota, and then you can join like on the page ezibota.com/chat. So thank you.
Great point. Thank you for reminding us. So I just wanted to move a little bit forward with the next question, and this is very, very, very broad. So feel free to kind of be creative with your answers. It's just to get you guys thinking, not just us, obviously, but obviously all of us across the internet, to think about our future really and what being sort of multicultural means to us. So the question is, when you think about your future, where do you think you will live and or establish yourself, if within the diaspora, so kind of maintain our current status, or on the continent, and either or, if you can expand on that and why. So I'm just gonna start with Paulus. If you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, my thoughts on this is quite simply: once a diaspora, always a diaspora. I mean, that's the same point I got from your story, is that okay, and we don't go in Europe. In Europe, there will always be people in Europe that will say, as you go back to Africa, you don't belong here. And we saw that on Brexit. The fallout on Brexit was that people who had lived there for generations were told to go back to Africa, even though they're practically British. But then again, some of us, when we go back to ancestors in Africa or the Caribbean, even there we might face some mild form of communication where we are told that you're not exactly one of us, you're a foreigner. So once a diaspora, always a diaspora, and that's why I would like to have a lot input from people on the chats on Twitter and to like see your views on how do you feel about it. Something that you cannot get away from yourself. But for me personally, I'm thinking about really being fluid about it. Maybe it's in Europe, my future. Maybe it's in Africa, or maybe both. So as a diaspora, we are living in a reality where we always have to uh, adapt to the circumstances, and we cannot say that now we're going to be here and this is where we're going to be for the rest of our lives. We practically have to adapt and currently stay on the move because of our background. But I think people on Twitter and the chat have a lot more to say about this.
Yeah, so I was actually just checking Twitter, and Radiet, one of our contributors, she's saying that this chart is important now more than ever, when mobility is highly constrained in the EU, while African countries agree to open up. Now, it's very true, obviously, because of the issues related to security and all the things that are happening internally, in individual countries, but also across the continent. In this case, Europe. The fact that governments want to control the movement of people, whether they are workers, migrants, or they are refugees. Um, do you guys think, so earlier we were talking about the fact that historically passport was developed to kind of control the movement of people. Do you guys think that we are kind of returning to those principles, those ideas, the will to control people? I'm just going to throw that question, Abula, if you have
Oh,
any thoughts on that.
okay. So um, okay. How do I say this? Okay. At the expense of sounding like an African Trump, okay? And before anyone feels any type of way, it's very difficult, like, because I'm just kind of like, so people are critical of, I guess, the government monitoring how people, like, navigate, whatever, whatever. But then we also have the expectation for them to protect their people. So it's like, and I don't engage in this conversation a lot at all. So it's like, if this is something that there's a lot of isms that are like seeping through the process, like discriminations against people that don't have a lot of money, don't have a lot of education, are black, foreign, are there suggestions for how we can allow people access that doesn't discriminate, but also protect our countries, like protect, our people? I'm very curious because we're living in a time where, more and more like people are becoming numb to like terrorist attacks. And this isn't just about like terrorism per se, but it's just kind of like, and I can be completely ignorant. I don't know the conversations that are taking place, but if there are conversations taking place, what are some of the not productive, but some of the solutions that people are offering that caters to everyone, but still kind of protects our lands? And I'm not voting for Trump. Don't think it.
No, we are not thinking it.
Okay. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. I think it's a very sort of difficult conversation to have. So how do you protect the land and sort of protect the people within, but also allowing people to be free and people to move freely? And so on my side, I totally understand where you're coming from and conversation that needs to be had. Um, Kakidan, do you have any thoughts on that? I saw you sort of agreeing or disagreeing with Beulah. I couldn't quite get that, but
Um,
do you have any thoughts?
I mean, as far as what's the alternative, I don't know. But as I'm looking at the recent post that I read, the African Union introducing an African passport, that seems a bit promising to me in the sense that there would be mobility across the continent, meaning free trade and one passport. I don't know, I think that would be helpful. And I think that's really timely considering that we're discussing identity and passports right now. But yeah.
Paulus, do you have any suggestions in that regard?
No, I don't really have a lot of suggestions like on this. But about what Biola said, I would like to go back on that. I mean, yes, before passports, we had like walls around cities. We all know the wall of Jericho and what happened to that, and we also know the wall of Berlin. So, I mean, yeah, you can use. Sorry, I'm just trying to catch the point here. But yeah, I mean, it's okay to protect yourself with systems where you manage who comes in and who comes out and have gates and gatekeepers. But it also depends because it's quite ironic that, let's say, the countries that have been colonizing the world for the rest of 400 years are the ones with more sophisticated systems to keep themselves safe from outside influences, whereas the countries that historically have suffered from foreign invasion or infiltrations can be very easily overrun. So I don't know. It's quite paradoxical, but in the case of the United States and the many terror attacks that have been happening there, there is a real necessity for some sort of security measures to like keep the civilians safe. So I don't know. It's quite paradoxical in that sense. I don't know. Mm.
You made a point about you know how is it that countries that colonize other countries are kind of they they kind of want to move away from effectively helping the people that are moving from those countries they colonize. And that's something I've been thinking about, especially. So for those who don't know, who missed the introduction bit, I said I currently live in England, and recently England voted to leave the European Union. There was a lot of rhetoric on immigration and freedom of movement and all that bit. And a lot of people have been actually talking about the fact, immigration that colonized half of the world is now they kind of want to protect themselves. So, do you guys think these countries, effectively the Western countries, do they have the, the right, the ethical right to kind of say no, we are full, and take yourself elsewhere? So I'm sure that question there. Beulah, do you have any thoughts on that?
Can you please repeat that because it was chopping up a little bit for me?
Yeah, so I was saying, do you think those countries in the Western world that effectively colonized half of the world, so in the case of where I'm living, Britain, do you think they have the right to kind of be like, no, we are done, we don't want people here, go home, that kind of rhetoric? Do you think they have the ethical and also the political right to kind of make this case?
I mean, that's interesting. It's kind of like in America, do police officers have the right to convict a black person when they steal? Like, it's kind of like, I don't know. That's a great question. When I went to London, I went to a museum and I was like very disgusted. I was like, you guys are making money off of showcasing stuff that you stole. So I mean, I guess in a practical sense, they do because their country is now based upon that history, and it's like how like I don't know if you want to talk about reparations. Like it's like this conversation is almost like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. It's like but like in my heart, no. But practically, I mean, I would assume I don't feel qualified to answer this question. Look at follows.
Carlos,
Yeah.
do you have anything to share? Looks like you do. Go ahead. Are you sure? Okay. I just wanted to read something from Twitter from the African King. So he's saying, going home really affirmed that I was an Americanized Nigerian. We were talking about this earlier. So the fact that we would not recognize who we are in terms of our identity and our privilege unless we kind of take ourselves out of that context, and that's very real. So we are kind of running out of time at this point, and I just wanted to know if anyone has any final remarks. And after that, we'll just share where we can continue this discussion and wrap up.
Yes, Benja, I have a quick remark. Um, so like this, I'm very grateful for this conversation. I'm grateful for this platform and everybody that partook in this discussion because I really did have an epiphany when during this talk, right? So when Benjamina read that quote by Chimamanda Adichie, and she said authentically African, that's why she only has a Nigerian passport, I was like, yuck. But then when I made the plea for us to further explore privilege and like what that looks like and what that feels like, and in order for us to have privilege, that means that other people have to be stepped upon. I really was kind of like, wow, like yes, I'm a northern people question my authenticity and like my Africanness, but it's coming from somewhere. And so on the chat, Alpha was sharing some of his thoughts, Olu was sharing some of his thoughts, the African King. But I just really want to encourage people to explore, especially we as diasporans, explore that privilege and don't do what white people do and just say, oh, I have white privilege, but like actually like look and see how you benefit, and if you benefit, somebody is hurting. So not hurting, but like they're being harmed because of that benefit, of that privilege. So yeah, it's not just like a cute phrase, passport privilege. It's like a real thing. And I don't think anyone should feel guilty for having several passports, like a passport in their adoptive country and their native country, but just like understand the implications, understand that people aren't just taking shots at you, from my understanding, when they question your authenticity or identity because you.
Yeah, definitely. So, if we cannot help, at least sort of, not question and, make people feel uncomfortable when they are not in the same position as us. So, does Paulus, do you have any remarks? Paulus?
I really don't have a lot of remarks anymore to add to this. Just looking at the Ezibota chat and the input around there. But one guy, Anon0954 says, especially in my senior high school year, I was aware that I could have gotten prize for Jackson and more scholarship open for EU pass. Before that, I wasn't really aware of my passport affecting my summer vacations. So he or she is telling us that for her or him, it's the EU passport that's really the thing that's like opening doors in terms of getting cheaper prices. So getting open doors for yes, it is a, and we have to be very careful and responsible how we use what we have because many don't and might not have the same status quo as some of us, for example. But that
Kakidon, do you
was
have anything to?
from
Oh, sorry, Paulus. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, okay. Kakidon, do you have anything else to say? Kakidon, we can't hear you. I think you're on
Oh,
mute.
yeah, I was on mute. I don't really have anything to add to that, but I think just within this discussion, I'm just aware of my privilege with the United States citizenship and a passport from here and what that would allow me to do, but then being aware of that privilege and how to not take advantage of that. I think that's what I'm taking out of this discussion today.
Okay. So, thank you all guys for helping us facilitate this conversation. Very needed, very important, especially at this time, like Radio was underlying there on Twitter. So for those who are following us from the internet, just follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, all that bit. We can definitely continue this conversation on Twitter. The official hashtag is EziChat, and our handle is Ezibota. So, if you want to go ahead to discuss and share your experience, please do so. Because of time, we're not able to, continue to have this conversation on live. But yeah, definitely share with us online. So yeah, join us next month for our roundtable, and we will give the date and the time as always on our platforms. And yeah, see you soon. Thank you all our panel for participating and helping us on this. Bye.